Hey guys, before we start, to enter free giveaway, like, subscribe, and hype the video. And don't forget to type your name in the comments so that we can contact you if you are the lucky one. Now, let's go to the video. The photograph lay on the table like a piece of evidence against reality itself. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, bleaching the colors out of everything. The gray metal chairs, the gray file cabinets, the gray cinder block walls. Only the photograph had any life to it, and even that life was wrong. A reception hall, white tablecloths, a collapsed three-tier cake, icing smeared across polished wood like fallen snow, scatterings of shoes, napkins, an overturned chair, and in the center of the dance floor, a bridal gown spread in a perfect sunburst of satin and tulle. Empty. No bride. No blood. No sign of violence. Just a hollow dress, lying exactly where, according to every surviving witness, the bride had been standing seconds before she disappeared, along with 62 other people. Across the table, the man in the dark suit tapped the bottom corner of the photo with his pen. "Miss Hale," he said, "do you recognize this?" The woman opposite him had her hands laced together so tightly her knuckles were white. She was in her mid-30s now, but there was something stubbornly young in her face, a softness at the mouth that trauma hadn't managed to erase. Her eyes dropped to the photograph. "Yes," she said, "that's Halloway House. July 4th, 1993. Her voice was steady. The muscles in her jaw were not. "You were 5 years old," the man said. "Flower girl. You've given statements before.
I didn't do
Childhood
this.
recollections. Today I'm asking for something different." He clicked his pen. "The Halloway file is being declassified in part. We need a narrative record. A beginning, middle, and..." He glanced at the folder, at a page so heavily redacted it looked diseased. "Something resembling an end." He slid the file closer, its cover stamped in red. Halloway incident, mass disappearance / anomalous. "In your own words, Miss Hale," he said, "how did an ordinary American wedding turn into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in this country's history?" She looked at the photograph a moment longer. When she spoke again, her voice was somewhere else entirely. "It didn't start as a mystery," she said. "It started as the happiest day of Emily's life." Her fingers unclasped just enough for her to turn the photograph around, angling it as if she could see past the frozen chaos to the hours before. "It was July 4th, 1993, she said softly, "and Halloway House had never looked better." The Halloway House sat at the end of a long, tree-lined drive an hour outside Philadelphia, pretending not to be haunted. It was a 3-story stone mansion built in the 1890s by a coal baron who liked to see his money stacked up in granite. Wrap-around porch, white columns, a lawn large enough to lay out a small airport. By the early 1990s, the coal was gone, the baron was long dead, and the house had been reinvented as a venue. Halloway House, historic events and retreat center. Weddings, corporate getaways, brochures full of smiling couples, and tasteful uplighting. On the morning of July 4th, 1993, someone had tied red, white, and blue ribbons around the porch railings. The air smelled of cut grass and distant barbecue smoke. Cicadas whirred in the trees. Inside, the house was all polished wood and high ceilings. A staircase swept up from the foyer like something out of a movie. Upstairs, bedrooms had been turned into dressing suites and staging areas. Downstairs, the old ballroom, once the site of 19th century waltzes and, later, dusty ruin, had been restored to a bright, echoing space with crystal chandeliers and tall, mirrored walls. The staff had been there since dawn. Caterers in white shirts and black vests rolled in racks of plates and trays of chicken Florentine. The florist fussed with arrangements, white roses, baby's breath, tiny American flags poking from mason jars on the tables. The band, a 5-piece outfit called Second Wind, tested speakers in the corner of the ballroom, the singer mumbling lines into the microphone. Check, check, 1, 2. And around 9:30, the bride arrived. Emily Carter stepped out of the back seat of her parents' car in a simple sundress and sandals, her hair still in loose waves around her shoulders. She was 27, small and quick, with a nurse's practical way of moving through space. The morning sun caught the faint freckles on her nose. "Don't you dare start crying yet," she told her mother, who was already fumbling a tissue from her purse. "I'm not crying," Mrs. Carter sniffed. "You're crying." Behind them, a lanky young man emerged from an aging Honda, hefting an oblong black case out of the trunk with the reverence of a priest handling a holy relic. "Careful with that, Brandon," called the groom's father from the porch. "Costs more than your car." "Everything costs more than my car, Uncle Mike," Brandon Cook said cheerfully. He was 20, skinny, with a sprout of beard and a Temple University t-shirt peeking out under an unbuttoned dress shirt. The black case held his new toy, a VHS-C camcorder with image stabilization and a shiny red record button. He had plans: film school, documentaries, maybe even a feature one day. For now, he had an all-access pass to his cousin's wedding and a mandate from Emily herself. "Get everything," she told him. "Even the embarrassing stuff." He intended to. The first tape in what later analysts would label Exhibit A begins with static, then the wobbly exterior of Halloway House, its stone facade shimmering slightly in the heat. "July 4th, 1993, Brandon's voice narrates. The scene of the crime. He zooms in on the porch, on the bridesmaids lugging garment bags up the stairs, on Emily pausing to look back at the lawn, taking it in. "You nervous?" he asks. She turns to the camera, shading her eyes with one hand. "If I run," she says, "make sure you get my good side." She laughs. Someone off screen tells her not to jinx it. No one knows that line will one day be replayed in a windowless federal room, frozen and magnified and lip-read and slowed, as if a different answer might change what happens next. Upstairs, the designated bridal suite, was a bedroom that still smelled faintly of cedar and floor polish. The bed had been removed to make way for a rack of dresses. A full-length mirror stood in the corner, its gilt frame nicked and worn. By 11:30, the small room buzzed with female energy. Hairspray, perfume, the hiss of steam from a travel iron. Bridesmaids in lilac dresses moved in messy choreography. One of them, Naomi, Emily's college roommate, sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully painting her toenails and threatening violence on anyone who bumped her. "You're glowing," Naomi said when Emily stepped out of the bathroom in her slip. "Like, aggressively glowing. It's honestly rude." "Shut up," Emily said, grinning. Brandon hovered in the doorway, zoom lens whirring, inflicting his camera on everyone until one of the bridesmaids threw a makeup sponge at him. Out in the hallway, an older woman in a navy dress stood watching, hands clasped loosely in front of her. She was part of the venue's staff, or so everyone assumed. No one could later say exactly who she was. The other staff knew each other by name. The owner, Mr. Thurman, stout and red-faced, moved from room to room barking quiet instructions. The coordinator, a tired woman in a black blazer with a clipboard, double-checked timelines. The servers, mostly college kids, tied on aprons and joked about tips. The woman in navy drifted among them, like a guest no one quite remembered inviting. On the tape, she appears only once upstairs, a blur of dark fabric at the edge of the frame as Brandon pans across to catch Emily being zipped into her gown. "Okay, breathe in," Naomi says. The dress is a product of its decade. Off the shoulder sleeves like wings, a fitted bodice, skirts in cascading layers of satin. lace at the neckline, tiny seed pearls. As the zipper slides up, there's a moment, a small, private one, that somehow makes it to the tape. Emily catches her own reflection and goes still, not with fear, not with doubt, with something like surprise, as if she'd expected a stranger and found herself instead. "You look like you," Naomi says softly over her shoulder. "I look like my mother," Emily replies, half laughing, half choked. In the corner of the mirror, for a fraction of a second, another face seems to look back, taller, darker, features indistinct. It's easy to write it off as a trick of light, a smear on old glass. Unless you're one of the people who has spent 30 years freezing that exact frame, enhancing, zooming, circling the faint suggestion of a man in a dark suit standing just behind the bride. At the time, no one notices. The ceremony was set for 2 in the afternoon, on the lawn under an arch of flowers and bunting. By 1:30, the chairs were mostly filled. The sun pressed down like a hand on the back of the neck. Men dabbed at their foreheads with programs. Women fanned themselves. Children swung their legs, already bored. Claire Hale sat in the second row on the groom's side, her white flower girl dress puffed around her like a cloud. A circlet of silk flowers dug slightly into her scalp. Her feet, in stiff new shoes, didn't reach the grass. She kicked them back and forth anyway, counting the swings. 1, 2, 3. Her mother smoothed her hair for the 100th time. "Stop fidgeting, Claire Bear." "It's hot," Claire complained. "You wanted to wear tights," her mother reminded her. "Princesses don't melt, honey. They glow." Claire rolled her eyes, the gesture far too adult for 5. She was tucked between her parents, safe in the press of grown-up arms and perfume and aftershave. Somewhere behind her, an uncle cracked a joke about the officiant being late. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Down the aisle, under the arch, Daniel waited. He was an unassuming groom in many ways. Brown hair going prematurely thin at the temples, a nose that had been broken once in high school basketball, a nervous habit of rubbing the inside of his left wrist with his thumb. On Brandon's tape, as the camera zooms in on his face before the bridal processional, you can see the thumb working at his skin like he's trying to erase something invisible. "What if she changes her mind?" he mutters to the best man, not quite under his breath. "She won't," the best man says. "And if she does, I'm available." "Shut up," Daniel says, but he laughs. At 2:03 p.m., the string quartet strikes up Pachelbel's canon. Guests rise as one. The bridesmaids begin their measured walk down the aisle, bouquets held just so. Last in line, scattering petals with grave concentration, is Claire. For the rest of her life, when she closes her eyes, she will see that aisle stretching ahead like a tunnel. White cloth, white chairs, the archway a rectangle of light at the end. She will remember the sound of the quartet, slightly out of tune. The way the air shimmered over the grass. The faint tang of sunscreen and bug spray. She will not remember the tall man in the dark suit standing at the back, by the hydrangeas, watching the entire procession with his hands folded in front of him. On the tape, he's there for 6 seconds as Brandon pans past the guests. His face is turned 3/4 away from the camera. No one recognizes him. No one ever will. The ceremony itself was simple. Vows read from crumpled paper. Rings that didn't quite slide on the first try. Laughter, tears, all the usual markers of a life event. The officiant, a local minister with kind eyes and a reddened nose, stumbled only once when a gust of wind flipped his Bible page. Emily caught it with a quick hand. "Got you," she whispered. "I should be saying that to you," he whispered back, and they both smiled. When he pronounced them husband and wife, there was cheering, relief as much as joy. Someone fired a small confetti cannon. A toddler screamed, then laughed at his own fear. From the second row, Claire craned her neck to see the kiss. It seemed impossibly glamorous, like something from the movies her parents let her watch on Sunday afternoons. "Them's the last peaceful seconds of his life," an older aunt muttered behind her, and there was a ripple of good-natured groaning. If you freeze the tape at 4:15 p.m., you can see everything that is about to be lost lined up in a single frame. The bride and groom under the arch, kissing. Parents turned toward each other, already beginning to clap. Friends leaning in with cameras. Children on laps. In the far background, at the edge of the lawn, the dark-suited man stands half in shadow, his face obliterated by a shaft of sunlight flaring across the lens. He does not clap. The hours between ceremony and disaster blur in most memories. On tape, they're as crisp as if they happened yesterday. Cocktail hour on the back patio. People clustering in small knots, laughing too loudly, drinking champagne too fast because their stomachs are still tight from ceremony nerves. The band moving inside to set up. Staff lighting candles on the reception tables, the flames wavering in tiny invisible drafts. In one shot, as Brandon does a slow pan of the ballroom, the crystal, the flowers, the polished floor waiting to be scuffed by shoes, the camera catches something odd. In the mirrored wall along the far side, the reflection of the room is subtly wrong. The tables are there, the chairs, the empty dance floor, but no one is in the reflection. No band, no staff, no wandering guests. Just the room, pristine and still. In reality, as seen in the foreground, a server walks past carrying a stack of plates. In the mirror, he is absent. "Cheap glass," one of the FBI techs says later, when they first watch the footage. "Angle of incidence. Polarization. Camera limitations. Pick your gremlin." Maybe. Except that 20 minutes later, another shot shows the opposite. The reflection full of people who are not in the room. By then, no one at Halloway House is looking at the mirrors. They're looking at the bar. At 6:15 p.m., dinner is served. Chicken and beef, green beans, almondine, rolls in silver baskets. Toasts follow. Emily's father stands, glass in hand, and tells a long story about her falling off a bike at 9 and insisting on getting back on before the tears were even dry. Daniel's mother, already tipsy, reads a poem she found in a magazine. There is laughter. Someone cries when they're not supposed to and laughs when they're supposed to cry. Brandon, camera permanently soldered to his shoulder, captures it all. He swings from table to table, catching snatches of conversation. A cousin complaining about his job. A great uncle warning someone about cholesterol. A group of teenagers planning to sneak out later to watch fireworks from the lake. At table 6, a little cluster of older guests swap stories about the house itself. "Used to be they wouldn't rent this place out," one white-haired woman says, leaning in. "Too many incidents." "Oh, Liz," another woman sniffs. "Not this again." "I'm serious, Joan. There was that gas thing in the 50s, remember? And a fire back in the 70s. Faulty wiring," Joan says. "They fixed it. That's what they said," Liz replies darkly. Brandon's camera doesn't linger long enough to catch more. He moves on, zeroing in on the bride feeding the groom a forkful of cake. She smears frosting on his nose. He retaliates in kind. Everyone at the head table howls. It is mundane. It is precious. It will be dissected later the way aviation experts go over black box data from a crash. By 7:40 p.m., the light outside has turned golden. Inside, the ballroom is a warm, humming hive. The band has taken its place in the corner. The lead singer, a sandy-haired man in his 30s, scans his set list and nods to his bandmates. At the back of the room, a staff member dims the chandeliers. Conversations lower to a murmur. A buzz of expectation moves through the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, the singer says into the mic. At this time, we'd like to invite our beautiful bride and handsome groom to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. There's applause. Chair legs scrape. People pivot their chairs for a better view. Brandon, standing near the DJ's table, pans as Emily and Daniel step into the light. If you watch the tape with the sound off, if you strip away what you know, it looks like every wedding dance you've ever seen. He takes her hand. She rests the other on his shoulder. His free hand finds her waist. Their heads tilt toward each other. The band begins to play. Unchained melody, slightly too slow, as if time is already dragging. For roughly 90 seconds, nothing is wrong. In the crowd, people sway. Claire, sitting on her mother's lap now, rests her head against her mother's chest and watches the skirts swirl. In the corner of the frame, one of the chandeliers glitters. If you look very closely, you can see its crystals tremble, just a fraction of a beat off from the music, as if shaking to a rhythm only they can hear. No one notices. Not yet. Later, in the transcripts, investigators will list the anomalies in a column, numbered format. 1. Timecode irregularity on primary footage. 2. Total electrical failure for approximately 48 seconds. 3. Infrasound event suspected. 4. Mass disappearance of 63 individuals within enclosed space. No observable egress. On the tape, it happens like this. At 8:03 p.m. by the wall clock, the song hits the line, "Time can do so much." The chandelier nearest the band flickers. Once. Twice. The room wavers. The audio warps, the singer's voice stretching, dipping, as if someone were pressing a thumb into the tape. People shift, frown, look up. On the camcorder, in the top right corner, the tiny red numbers blink. 8 hours, 3 minutes, and 41 seconds. Then, without cut, without blur, with no change in the angle of the shot, the numbers jump. 8 hours, 7 minutes, and 12 seconds. 4.5 minutes gone. The couple on the dance floor do not skip, do not teleport. One frame they are turning. The next, they are in a different part of the song, Daniel's hand a fraction lower on Emily's back, her head tipped at a new angle. In the background, people have moved, drinks refilled, chairs pushed back. According to everyone in that room, they did not experience any missing time. According to the camera, they did. Before anyone can process the faint sense of wrongness, the lights go out. Not dim. Not flicker. Out. Every chandelier. Every wall sconce. The band's amps. The exit signs over the doors that, by code, should be on their own circuit. Darkness drops like a curtain. There's a sharp intake of breath from 200 throats, then a surge of noise, shouts, startled laughter, the metallic scrape of a chair tipped over. Someone yells, "It's the breakers!" Someone else, closer to hysteria, "Kids, stay where you are!" On the tape, the image goes black. The microphones, straining, pick up overlapping voices and something else beneath them. A sound too low to be heard so much is felt. When audio techs later isolate it, amplify it, run it through spectral analysis, it shows as a thick band of energy around 18 to 19 hertz, below the range of conscious human hearing, the realm of infrasound. "It makes people feel weird," one acoustics expert says in his deposition, grasping for words. "Uneasy, panicky. You can't hear it, but your body knows it's there. Quakes, big engines, certain kinds of weather systems. That kind of thing. It can't make people vanish." The agent replies. The expert spreads his hands. "No," he says. "That's above my pay grade." In the ballroom, during those 48 seconds of blackout, everyone's account diverges. Some people remember only darkness and fear. Others remember specific, impossible things. One waiter says he saw sparks dancing along the ceiling, like St. Elmo's fire, shapes flickering in the corners where wall met plaster. A bridesmaid swears she felt the floor tilt, like the deck of a ship, and grabbed the woman next to her, only to find her hand closing on empty air. An older man at table 6 refuses, in every interview, to describe what he saw. "I know how that sounds," he says, "but some things don't do well in words." The children remember most vividly. The air got thick. 6-year-old Lily tells the counselor brought in to debrief the minors. "Like when you're under the pool and you open your eyes. Everything was wiggly." "What did you hear?" the counselor asks. "A train," Lily says. "But not outside. In my tummy." 5-year-old Claire says something different. "Somebody told me to close my eyes," she says. "Who?" the counselor asks gently. "A man," Claire says. "Tall. Like Daddy but longer." "Longer?" She considers this, small face screwed up. "Like he was stretched," she says. "Like my Gumby. You must have been very frightened." Claire shakes her head. "He said don't look," she says. "So I didn't." "When did you open your eyes?" "When the screaming started," she whispers. On the tape, the screaming begins almost the instant the lights return. Light slams back into the ballroom with painful intensity. The chandeliers blaze. The band's amps pop as electricity surges back through them. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then the human brain does what it always does when confronted with the impossible. It tries, very hard, to make it ordinary. People blink, laugh shakily, clap as if the blackout was a planned part of the night. "Whoa," someone says. "That was trippy. Guess we overloaded the circuits." Another chuckles. In the center of the room, on the dance floor, there is a ripple of silence. It spreads outward, a crater in the noise. People turn. On the tape, Brandon's camera is still pointed toward where Emily and Daniel had been dancing. The sudden brightness makes the image flare white, then settle. In the middle of the floor lies Emily's dress. Spread in a perfect circle, its skirts fanned like a flower. The bodice collapsed inward, the sleeves empty. Beside it, Daniel's tuxedo jacket. His tie. His boutonniere. His shirt, wrinkled in a way that suggests a body has just slipped out of it and vanished. No one moves for approximately 3 seconds. Then, like a movie coming off pause, the room erupts. "Sis?" someone calls. "Emily? Danny? What the?" A woman screams, a high, animal sound that scrapes the back of the skull. On the far side of the room, a child starts crying. Another joins in. People surge forward, then hesitate at the edge of the dress, as if it marks some invisible boundary. On the tape, the lens trembles. Brandon has stopped thinking of himself as a cameraman and started thinking of himself as a cousin. "Emily?" he shouts, voice cracking. He pushes through the crush, camera bobbing wildly. For a moment, the frame swirls across faces, white, stunned, open mouths, wide eyes, then steadies on the empty dress again. Up close, it is even worse. The bodice is intact, the zipper still closed, the tiny buttons at the back still looped. The sleeves lie where her arms should be. Her shoes, satin pumps with low heels, sit side by side near the hem, pointed slightly inward. It looks less like someone stepped out of it than like someone stopped being there. A woman, Emily's mother, drops to her knees beside the dress, hands hovering as if afraid to touch it. "Emily?" she whispers. "Emmy, get up. This isn't funny." Someone else swears and bolts for the doors. "Check the bathrooms," a man shouts. "Check outside. Check the kitchen. Danny!" Within seconds, the search spreads. The tape catches it in jagged glimpses as Brandon spins. trying to film and look and understand all at once. A cousin on his hands and knees, looking under tables, as if Emily might somehow be hiding with the dropped forks. The minister staring at his own empty hands, as though the vows themselves had detonated something. A tablecloth yanked back, plates clattering to the floor. A woman with lipstick smeared across her cheek grabbing random shoulders. "Have you seen my son? Has anyone seen Kevin?" In that first frantic 10 minutes, it isn't yet clear that this is more than a grotesque prank or a single person's disappearance. Then the numbers start to come in. "They're not in the bathrooms," someone reports, pale. "They're not outside," says another. "Doors are still shut. Locked." "Locked?" an officer repeats later. "From the inside?" "Yes." In the chaos, no one notices, at first, what isn't there. No toppled chairs where people might have been dragged away. No broken glass path leading to a secret exit. No scorched patches on the floor. No holes in the ceiling. No blood. Just absence. The first 911 call is logged at 8:12 p.m. The recording begins with panting breath and a jumble of voices. "Took them. They're gone. They're just... Ma'am, slow down, please. Where are you?" "Halloway House," a woman sobs. "The ballroom. Please, you have to. They just... Is anyone injured?" the dispatcher asks, because that is the script and because her brain is not equipped for anything outside it. "They're gone," the woman repeats. "Half of them Aragonian delight sand." "Okay, I'm dispatching officers now," the dispatcher says, motioning frantically to her supervisor. "Stay on the line with me." 2 local patrol cars arrive to a scene that looks, from the outside, perfectly calm. The lawn is quiet. The house stands in its pool of light, flags and bunting rippling in the faint breeze. Faint music drifts from the open windows. The band, acting on some automatic professionalism, has started playing again, something instrumental and meaningless. Inside, the foyer is empty. Then the officers push through the double doors to the ballroom. Later, when one of them is interviewed for an internal review, he tries, several times, to describe the moment. "It was like walking into a picture that had been edited," he settles on finally. "You know those spot the difference puzzles in the paper? Like that. Things were missing." Tables were overturned. Chairs strewn. Glass is shattered on the floor, champagne soaking into white linen. In the middle of the room, under 2 bright chandeliers, a knot of guests clustered around a white shape. The younger officer's hand went automatically to his holster. "Back up," he called, shoving through. "Let us through." They parted for him. Faces. So many faces. Pale, streaked with tears, frozen in masks of incredulity. He saw the dress. He saw the suit. He saw the little girl in the front row crouch down and pick up a single white satin shoe and hold it like a seashell to her chest. "Where is she?" someone said, voice flat with shock. "Where did she go?" No one answered. By midnight, Halloway House was a crime scene. Yellow tape fluttered in the humid air. Squad cars lined the drive, red and blue lights strobing against the old stone walls. News vans idled at the end of the long lane, engines ticking. Reporters, rebuffed by troopers, huddled in small groups, trading rumors. Inside, the ballroom, stripped of guests, looked oddly smaller. Evidence markers dotted the floor. White circles where glasses had shattered. Dark smears where food had fallen. The dress and clothes, by then, were gone, bagged and tagged and sealed in thick plastic. Technicians in coveralls moved like astronauts in low gravity, careful not to disturb any trace. In a side room, the surviving guests sat in shell-shocked clumps, wrapped in blankets, styrofoam cups of coffee cooling untouched in their hands. Some stared into space. Some talked compulsively, covering the same ground again and again. "I was holding his hand," one woman said over and over. We were holding hands. Then, I wasn't. Maybe they're doing a prank. A teenage boy muttered, voice wobbling. Like a big scare. They're gonna jump out any second and yell gotcha. Right? Right? In the corner, a cluster of children drew with crayons supplied by someone with a sense of mercy. Circles mostly. People holding hands. A tall, thin figure in the middle. A ring around them, heavy black. Agents from the state police and the FBI moved among the clusters, taking names, taking notes. Within hours, it was clear this was beyond anything the local department could handle. You do not lose 63 people in one room. One state investigator said, low to another, without somebody in Washington taking an interest. Someone in Washington did. By dawn, additional vehicles rolled up the drive. Men and women in suits stepped out, their expressions professionally neutral. On their badges, in small print under Federal Bureau of Investigation, were the words, Behavioral Science Unit, and in some cases, no unit listed at all. They requested all tapes, photographs, and film from the event. They walked the perimeter of the ballroom, then walked it again. One of them, a woman with gray hair scraped back in a bun, stood under the central chandelier and closed her eyes, as if listening. It's here, she said finally, so softly no one near her quite caught it. Ma'am? A younger agent asked. Nothing, she said. Give me the camera. The camcorder's casing was scuffed but intact. It had been knocked onto its side during the panic, lens pointing down at the parquet floor, recording shoes rushing past. The tape inside was full. In a secured room at the field office, with the blinds drawn and the air turned uncomfortably cold to protect the equipment, they threaded the tape through a playback deck and watched. They watched the vows, the toasts, the laughter. They saw the odd woman in navy at the edge of the frame upstairs, then not again. They saw, on slow motion replay, the dark-suited man who appeared in some shots and not in others, his face always just out of focus. They saw the mirrors behaving badly. They saw the timecode jump and the blackout and the aftermath. They watched the recording half a dozen times, then half a dozen more, looking for seams, edits, anything that would make this a very complicated, very expensive hoax instead of what it looked like. They did not find any. On the 10th viewing, one of the techs, a thin man with large glasses, going blind from staring at screens, paused the tape at a random frame and swore softly. What? His supervisor asked, coming over. Look, the tech said. The frame showed the ballroom seconds after the lights came back. People's heads were turning. Hands were lifting to mouths. The empty dress dominated the center. Along the far wall, a line of tall mirrors reflected the scene. Okay, the supervisor said. So? Count, the tech said. In the room, in the foreground, there were maybe 30 people visible. In the reflections, there were at least twice that number. Some corresponded to real figures. This woman here, that man there. But others had no counterpart in the flesh. You think it's just double exposure? The supervisor asked, frowning. On video? The tech said. No. They zoomed in. On one of the mirrored panes, in the far left, the bride and groom were still dancing. Pale, slightly translucent, movements a fraction slower than they'd been a minute before. As the camera panned, the angle shifted, and the reflected couple slipped out of view. They rewound. Played it again. Again. On the last frame before the reflection vanished, Daniel's head lifted. His eyes, in the reflection, appeared to lock onto the camera. His mouth moved. There was no corresponding audio, just the dull roar of the panicking crowd. Later, lip-reading experts would disagree on the precise wording, but 3 out of 4 agreed on the general shape. We're still here." 6 weeks later, when the electrician came forward with the box he had found in the Halloway basement, old 16mm reels labeled with dates and the word wedding, the case stopped being simply horrifying and became something else. The footage from 1954 and 1963 and 1972 was black and white, jittery, full of scratches. In each, the room was the same. The chandeliers were older, before the last renovation, but hung in the same places. The mirrors were the same, slightly more tarnished at the edges. In each film, the same pattern emerged. A ceremony, a reception, a first dance. Guests clustered around the happy couple. Laughter, though there was no sound. The universal body language of celebration. Then flicker, flash, a jump in the film. The scene after the jump was always different, but recognizable. Tables overturned, people running, a circle of clothing at the center of the floor where a bride and groom had just stood. In the June 1954 film, the bride's dress looked like something off a magazine cover from the era. Cinched waist, full skirt, veiled hat. After the flash, it lay in a deflated heap. The groom's tuxedo jacket and tie beside it. In the September 1963 film, the fashion was sleeker, the hair shorter. The chaos after was the same. Newspaper archives, once scoured, turned up brief, strangely bloodless reports. Gas explosion injures guests at local estate. Faulty wiring blamed in Halloway House incident. No mention of the missing, just vague language about confusion, injuries, and privacy of families. In none of the stories was there a body count. "It's a pattern," one analyst said, pinning stills to a corkboard in a secure room. "It's not just that it happened again. It's that it keeps happening the same way. Same room," another agreed. "Same part of the night. Same ritual context. But different officiants," a third pointed out. "Different staff. Different guests. So what's the common denominator?" "The house," someone said. "And whatever the hell is in it," someone else replied. Theories bred like mold in the dark. Some agents clung to the hope of a physical explanation. A trapdoor system dating back to Prohibition tunnels. Elaborate staging by a doomsday cult. A previously unknown sinkhole opening beneath the ballroom. All of them failed basic tests. Ground-penetrating radar showed solid rock beneath the house. No hollow space is large enough to swallow more than a few people, let alone 63. Every entrance and exit during the event had been accounted for on security logs and, in some cases, exterior cameras. There was no way out that didn't go past someone. Others floated stranger ideas in quiet, after-hours conversations. Electromagnetic anomalies. Thin spots. Places where, under the right conditions, the fabric of whatever this is stretched. Ley lines, one younger agent suggested once, earning a glare. "It isn't magic," his supervisor said sharply. "Quantum, then," the younger agent muttered. "Spooky action at a distance." They tested for everything they knew how to test for. Residual radiation. None. Unusual magnetic fields. Mild fluctuations, chalked up to old wiring. Acoustic irregularities. The infrasound signature in the blackout was the only standout. "It might not be the cause," the acoustics expert said, spreading spectrogram printouts on the table. "But it's a marker. Like tinnitus after an explosion. Something big happened in there." "Big what?" the agent asked. The expert had no answer. And then there were the children's drawings. They went into the evidence boxes like everything else. But copies found their way to a different set of eyes. To a small, under-the-radar task force that, officially, didn't exist. The people on that task force did not dismiss words like entity or ritual out of hand. They circled the tall, thin figure in the children's crayon sketches. They circled the unidentifiable man in the dark suit on the tapes. In their own, more secretive memos, they gave him a designation. Subject X. The official line to the public settled on tragedy, not anomaly. There had been a catastrophic structural event at Halloway House. Details were under investigation. The family's privacy was requested. Thoughts and prayers were extended. Rumors leaked anyway. They all walked out together and never came back. There was a bomb. It was a cult suicide. It was aliens. It was the government. Halloway House closed. The owners, under quiet pressure, sold it to a holding company with no clear offices and a P.O. box in Virginia. For a while, the story was everywhere. Talk shows, tabloids, late-night radio. Then, gradually, it wasn't. New scandals replaced old mysteries. The families of the missing did what people do, chased leads until they ran out, then tried to rebuild around the holes. Children grew up. One 5-year-old girl moved with her parents to another state. Her last name changed. The tapes and transcripts of her early interviews went into a box. She dreamed, sometimes, of chandeliers and thick air and a hand taking hers in the dark. She did not talk about it. Not until the envelope arrived. Claire turned 18 in a different house, in a different state, with friends who knew her as the quiet one who never came to 4th of July parties. Her parents, hoping to make a new tradition, took her to dinner. They gave her a delicate necklace, a stack of college brochures. When they got home, there was a plain manila envelope in the mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just her name, written in neat, block capitals. "Maybe from a friend?" her mother said, forcing cheer she didn't feel. "Open it, honey." Inside was a VHS tape. Black plastic. No label. No markings. In her bedroom, Claire slid it into the VCR she kept mostly for Disney movies and childhood cartoons. The blue screen flickered. The tape whirred. Snow. Then image. A house. Not her current house. Not any she recognized at first. 3 stories of stone. White columns. A familiar curve of driveway. For a moment, she thought it was old footage. Then someone walked through the frame in a t-shirt with a logo she'd seen on TikTok last week. Her heart stopped. It was Halloway House. Not in 1993. Not in 1954. Now, she watched, frozen, as the camera followed the montage of another wedding. Different bride, different groom, different guests in modern clothes, holding up smartphones, taking selfies. Inside, the ballroom looked both exactly the same and oddly wrong. The chandeliers were there. The mirrors. The long, polished floor. The wall sconces were new. The paint fresher. Someone had changed the curtains. The camera quality was better. Color sharper. Faces clearer. She saw a little girl in a flowered dress run past, laughing. She saw, in the far corner, a tall man in a dark suit, no tie, standing with his hands folded. She leaned forward, fingers digging into her knees. "Look at me!" she whispered to the screen without meaning to. The man did not. The tape played through the ceremony. Shorter than in her memory. The officiant made a joke about meeting on an app. People laughed. The reception blurred past. Drinking. Dancing. The band was a DJ now, but the energy was the same. At the 31-minute mark, the DJ announced the first dance. "Ladies and gentlemen," the bride and groom stepped onto the floor as the opening notes of a song Claire didn't know began. Her hands were sweating. "No," she said to no one. On screen, the couple moved together. The chandeliers gleamed. In the top corner of the image, digital numbers ticked. 21:03:12, 21:03:13. The lights flickered. The audio warped. The time code jumped. 21 hours, 7 minutes, and 47 seconds. Everyone on the dance floor was in a slightly different position. The bride's head turned. The groom's hand slipped lower on her back. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the frame. Claire's breath came in little white puffs on the cold air of her bedroom. The VCR hummed. 48 seconds of black. Sound like distant thunder. She knew what came next. The lights slammed back on. On the tape, the bride's dress lay in a circle on the floor. The groom's suit beside it. People screamed. The camera shook, dropped for a second, then righted as the person recording forgot how to film and remembered how to be human. 911! Someone call 911! A voice shouted off screen. Claire saw faces she didn't know making expressions she did. The expressions of witnesses, of survivors. She watched until the tape cut out. Blue screen. White letters. Stop/eject. Her hand seemed to move without her. She pressed eject. The machine whined and spat out the cassette. She turned it over in her hands. No label. No distinguishing mark. Just cheap black plastic. Her parents were in the kitchen, clinking plates. "Everything okay, honey?" her father called. "Yeah," she said. Her voice sounded far away. She decided not to tell them. By the time she tried to watch the tape again, a week later, the screen stayed blue. No image. No sound. The machine did not even register that a tape was loaded. Her therapist would later call this symbolic reenactment. Trauma hunting for patterns. Her logical mind agreed. Her hindbrain did not. Years later, when the Freedom of Information Act pried open some of the lids on old federal boxes, journalists started filing broad, lazy requests. All documents relating to. Most of them returned empty, or with reams of useless paper. But one came back thicker than expected. It had Halloway incident scrawled in ink at the top. A podcaster, Claire, sometimes listened to mention the file in an episode title. Listeners crashed the server trying to download. In an anonymous apartment in a different city. Claire sat at her kitchen table with a FOIA request form in front of her and a pen in her hand. She filled in the blanks. Subject of request: Halloway House / Halloway incident / July 4th, 1993 / mass disappearance. She mailed it. Months later, the response arrived. A cardboard envelope. Heavy. Inside, photocopied pages. Photographs. Transcripts. Most of the pages were so redacted, they looked like crossword puzzles filled in with black ink. But some slivers remained. Phrases like anomalous event, recurring pattern, subject X, unknown adult male. Her own name in a witness list. Hale, Claire, age 5, flower girl. She turned another page. A photograph slid out. The front door of Halloway House, boarded up, paint peeling. Weeds pushing through the cracked stone steps. On the plywood covering the door, someone had spray-painted 3 words in looping white. "We're still here." In the corner, a timestamp, June 28, 2021. That handwriting matched, in its curves and slants, the block letters on the envelope that had delivered her the unlabeled tape all those years ago. She sat with that for a long time. Then she called the number at the bottom of the FOIA response form. Questions or appeals? Which is how she found herself in a gray room with a man in a dark suit, a photograph on the table between them, and a recorder blinking red. "Miss Hale," the man said, "you understand that what you'll say becomes part of the official record." "I understand," she replied. "You've read the file," he said. "You know what we know. You also know what we don't." She thought of the children's drawings. The circling of subject X. The speculative memos about time slippage and infrasound and collective hysteria. You don't know where they went, she said. He didn't flinch. No, he said. We don't. You don't know what Halloway House is, she added. Not really. That's also accurate. You don't know why it keeps happening, she said. We have theories. The word hung in the air between them. It sounded thin. He leaned forward. What we do know, he said, is that people like you, witnesses with clear, persistent memories, are rare. And that, according to this, he tapped a page, you remember something the others don't. When the lights went out, she said quietly. The voice. Yes. He watched her with that particular, trained neutrality of someone who was ready for anything and pretending to expect nothing. Tell me, he said, what you heard. She took a breath. When the lights went out, she said, I felt heavy, like someone put a blanket made of rocks over the room. My ears rang. My teeth hurt. Infrasound, he murmured. Go on. I thought I was going to cry, she said, and then someone took my hand. Your mother? No, she said. It was the wrong size. Not a kid. Not a grown-up either. The fingers were long. He wrote something down. What did they say? He asked. Don't look, she said. Not yet. Was the voice familiar? She shook her head. Not then. And now? She hesitated. I've had 30 years to bury it under new sounds, she said dryly. What do you think? He didn't answer. After that, she said, I don't remember anything until the lights came back. My therapist says that's protective amnesia. My file says it's convenient. He looked faintly embarrassed. We have to consider all possibilities. I know, she said. You're not the first to think I made it up. Do you think you did? She thought of the unlabeled tape, the spray paint on the boarded door, the way her breath still hitched every time she heard the opening chords of Unchained Melody. No, she said. Silence stretched. Finally, he pushed the photograph of the boarded door toward her. You know it's back on the market, he said. Her heart thudded. Halloway House? She asked. She already knew the answer. Rebranded under its original name, the Halloway Estate. Weddings, conferences, retreats. He gave a humorless half smile. Apparently, history is a selling point. Do you think that's wise? She asked. He did not say that his opinion mattered less than she thought. Officially, he said, the incident was resolved. Unexplained, but resolved. Private property is private property. Unofficially, we've planted enough red flags in enough databases that anyone who does a standard due diligence background check will find reasons to hesitate, he said. But people see what they want to see. She imagined a couple, 27, hopeful, oblivious, touring the ballroom, commenting on the high ceilings and the vintage mirrors. She imagined the chandeliers. Someone sent me the tape, she said. The new one. The other wedding. Yes, he said. Did you send it? She asked. No, he said. If we had that footage, it would be in this file, not in your VCR. Then who did? We'd like to know that too. They sat with that a moment. Let me ask you something, he said, and I want you to answer as honestly as you can. Okay, if you had the chance to walk back into that house, he said softly, would you take it? She thought of the smell of floor polish and cedar, of the sunlight on the lawn, of Emily's hand waving at her from the top of the stairs. She thought of the thick air and the voice in the dark, of the reflection in the mirror, half a step out of sync. Yes, she said, before she could stop herself. Why? He asked. Because they didn't get to leave, she said. Because someone has to go back and look. Because I was told not to look yet, and I think maybe. Yet is over. He watched her with something like respect. You're not the only one who feels that way, he said. You? She asked. I'm paid to feel that way, he said. There's a difference. He slid the file closed. For now, he said, we write this down. We add your narrative to the pile. We wait to see who buys the house. And then? She asked. And then, he said, we see if history goes quietly or if it repeats. Outside, beyond the cinder block and fluorescent hum, the city moved in its own oblivious rhythm. Cars, sirens, people hurrying with coffees, checking their phones. In an office somewhere, a real estate agent drafted glossy copy about a charming historic venue with a storied past. In another office, a young couple scrolled through images of Halloway House, backlit brides on balconies, candles in mason jars, thinking it looked like the perfect place to start their forever. And in a locked, climate-controlled evidence room, reels of ancient film and plastic crates of VHS tapes slowly decayed. On one of those tapes, in a frame that had been paused and studied and enhanced until the emulsion grain was threatening to fall apart, a man in a borrowed tuxedo looked up from a dance floor and mouthed 3 words toward a camera he couldn't possibly see. We're still here. Whether that was a plea, a threat, or a simple, stunned statement of fact, no one could say. Claire stepped out of the federal building into the thin afternoon light and pulled her jacket tighter around her. The sky had that washed-out look it had on the day of the wedding, as if the world were a photograph left too long in the sun. On her phone, a news alert vibrated. She glanced down. Local landmark reopens for events after 30 years. Halloway Estate to host first wedding this fall. She clicked the link. A press photo loaded. The house, framed by trees, banners already going up. At the bottom, in small text, a line of contact information. To book your unforgettable day, call. Her thumb hovered over the number. She imagined, just for a moment, walking up the drive again, pushing open those doors, standing under those chandeliers and looking up and saying, "All right, I'm looking now." She put the phone back in her pocket. For today, the man in the suit had told her that what she said in that gray room would become part of the official record. It already was. What he hadn't said was that the official record was, and always would be, incomplete. There were things you couldn't redact. Grief, fear, the shape of absence, the way a dress lay on a floor with no one inside it, the way a little girl heard a voice in the dark telling her not to look. Yet, she walked down the steps, into the flow of people who had never heard of Halloway House and never would. Behind her, in the evidence room, the boxes sat. Ahead of her, out past lines on deeds and names on shell companies, and the blind optimism of engaged couples, the house waited. Somewhere, on a wall now hidden behind coats of paint, under generations of plaster, there might still be a faint ring where a circle of people had stood, hands linked, saying words meant to bind 2 lives together. Maybe the words had been heard by something else. Maybe, the next time, the cameras would catch more than reflections. Maybe not. For now, the greatest unsolved mystery in the history of America sat in a file folder and in a crumbling mansion, and in the mind of a woman who had been a 5-year-old flower girl, clutching a satin shoe while the world tried very hard to explain the unexplainable. We're still here. The house. The tapes. The questions. And somewhere, if the reflections and the lip readers and the children's drawings are right, so are they.